are going to be making some fried fish sandwiches with a little bit of an Old Bay seasoning to them and a bunch of different herby blends. We're going to do some home fries, make up some coleslaw, a homemade tartar sauce, and then we're going to bake up our chocolate chip cookies that we prepped earlier. So let's start by getting our potatoes sliced and ready and in the oven because these are going to take the longest to kind of get where we need them to be. I'm going to do kind of, because we're having fish, I feel like I want to do them in the fish and chips way. So I'm going to do just kind of little half chips. We're going to slice them, not too thick because you want them to kind of crisp up nicely. And then what I like to do is I just kind of discard the very ends of them so that I don't have like too much skin, because then my kids complain. Here we go. So we'll take these off, and then we're gonna do our kind of our battered seasoning on them. So I'm gonna coat them with olive oil, onion powder, flour, and then a good amount of spices because I want them to kind of pop today. You know, the other day we grabbed like 5 guys, you know, for just like a quick takeout dinner on game night. And, you know, I always forget how much I love their little Cajun fries. Half the time, though, they are a bit spicy, but I do love them. Just that little pop of extra flavor. Let's get these guys sliced up. And I always say the tedious part. And then we have, for our fish today, I was deciding whether to do tilapia or catfish, but the tilapia looked wonderful. So we're gonna actually fry up our tilapia, which I think is a really great intro fish to like, because it's a very plain and I will say less fishy white fish. So catfish is definitely an acquired taste. You definitely have a bit more of that fishy taste to it, especially if it's not like from a clean lake or whatnot. But tilapia is just a really good introductory fish if you're new to the fish scene, or if you're like my husband who doesn't like fish at all. But he likes my fried fish because it really isn't like, it's more like a fried chicken tender. Go. And then I almost was gonna make hush puppies today, but I was like, we did just have cornbread last night, so I was like, it's essentially, you know, hush puppies are essentially fried cornbread balls. But I was like, ooh, fish and cornbread, so I might have to do that sometime soon. Maybe I'll do a battered fish next time. Haven't done that. I'll have to get some cod, because cod is the best fish to have battered. We're going to do a hand breading on our fish today because tilapia is a bit firmer fish, so it can really stand up to that hand breading. Okay, we've got all of our potatoes here. Again, we did them in a nice kind of chip form, or like not quite a potato wedge, a little bit smaller. And this is 3 russet potatoes, which make a lot of French fries. I'm always, you know, I feel like I'm always surprised at how little amount of potatoes you need to get a lot of fries. Okay. And now we're going to season these guys up. We're going to do a good drizzle of olive oil over here. You probably want about, you know, 1.5 tablespoons. And then we're going to do some paprika. This is going to give them a really lovely, like, reddish color. And do about, I want to say that was probably like a little over 1/2 teaspoon. A good amount of onion powder. This is going to give it a really lovely savory flavor, as well as help kind of crisp it up. We're going to want about 1 teaspoon to 1.5 teaspoons. And then I'm going to do some Mrs. Dash's table blend, which this is about 1 teaspoon. And this is like their finely blended one, so it just kind of mixes really well. And then we're going to do a little bit of Old Bay seasoning to kind of go along with our fish, which is really just kind of like a seasoned salt. So we're going to do about 1.5 teaspoons of this. So again, we've got a lot of great seasoning on here. And then, of course, we're gonna add in, let me grab my flour, about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of flour. And this is gonna give you that nice kind of, we're gonna do 2 tablespoons, almost like a battered coating, like those delicious steak fries on there. That's where the magic comes in. So we're gonna go in and coat our little potato slices up with all of this deliciousness. And just really make sure you get them all coated, so you don't want any of your potatoes like sticking together, because those won't get any of that delicious seasoning on it. And there we go. And as you can see, it just forms this lovely like paste that completely coats the potatoes, which will allow them to really crisp up nicely and have all this wonderful flavor on it. Okay, and they smell delicious. Let's go get these guys spread out on our baking sheet over here. So I'm using a big 1.5 sheets, and I like to do mine straight on the metal versus putting down parchment paper, because I find that it just crisps up a little bit nicer when it's on there. Now you do get a little stickage sometimes, but I do find it just gives you a nice crisper potato, like French fry. There we go. And since we are baking up our cookies in the oven here, we're gonna just bake these at 375 for it. Now when the cookies are done, I'll probably pop it up on my air fryer setting and heat it up to get that last little crisping, but we're gonna start it off on 375. Here we go. Make sure when you're spreading them out that you don't have any like potatoes overlapping each other. It's fine if they're touching like edges and whatnot, but you want them to have their individual spots on the baking sheet. So I am using a large, this is the 1.5 sheets, so it kind of takes up the full like horizontal length of my oven, which is lovely because then you don't have to do it in 2 rows. And I will say French fries, just like when you're baking, you know, goods, the top batch always turns out better. It bakes a little bit nicer. So being able to make sure this gets all in that upper heat in the beginning will really give it a nice crispiness to it. So we'll get these guys out, and then we are going to whip up our, well, we'll start our breading for our fish, because then we'll start frying that up, and then we will prep up our cookies, make our coleslaw, and then our homemade tartar sauce, because you can't have a fried fish sandwich without tartar sauce. And once you've made tartar sauce homemade, you will never go back to buying it from the store, because it's so easy, but 10,000 times better. I'm gonna wash my hands, and then we'll go pop this in the oven.
Can you go over the process of making those again?
Yes, so this is 3 russet potatoes that we sliced up pretty thin, so cut through the half and sliced up. Then we tossed them in a large bowl with about 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil, a teaspoon of paprika, 1.5 teaspoons of onion powder, a teaspoon of Mrs. Dash's table blend, and then about 1.5 teaspoons of Old Bay seasoning, and then 2 tablespoons of flour. Coated them all up, and now we laid them out kind of on a nice thin layer on our baking sheet. I am going to, you know, I don't even need to set my timer right now, so I'm gonna actually clear that off. But I'm gonna make sure I put my oven back on. I have done that before where I have turned off my oven completely, but not today. Okay, we're gonna have it at 375 because that's what our cookies are gonna bake at. We'll do that. Once our cookies are done baking, I'll probably pop that up to the air fryer setting at 425 to get that nice kind of crispiness on it. But while we're waiting for that, let's start to prep up our fish on there. We're gonna make our seasoned dredge. I've got 6 good size tilapia fillets that we're gonna be using here on there. So we're gonna do 3 eggs for our egg mixture, because I'm pretty sure I can get through with just 3. I normally use 4 with 8, so I think 3 will get me. There we go. And then we're gonna use about, I'm gonna say, almost 2 cups, like 1.5 cups of flour that we're gonna season up here. And these are gonna be breaded fish, so not battered. Battered fish is where you literally make a batter that's similar to like pancake batter and you dip the fish in. This is gonna be a hand breaded one. So about a little over 2.5 cups of flour. And you want to make sure you season up your dredge really well, because this is where all that flavor is going to come in. So we're going to add in about 2 tablespoons of onion powder. We're going to do a tablespoon of paprika. This is going to give it a really nice amber color.
Niall sent you a wreath.
Oh, thank you. Does it look nice? We're gonna put in about a tablespoon of Mrs. Dash's table blend. And then we're gonna add in some oregano, about a teaspoon of oregano. And then for our like kind of saltier component, we're gonna do some Old Bay seasoning, because again, we're having fish, so it just works well. And we're gonna do about a tablespoon of Old Bay. And this has kind of salt in it, so you don't need to add any extra salt. Let me grab a fork. And we're gonna mix this up. And again, this is gonna be our seasoned dredge, but we're gonna add panko breadcrumbs in it so that it gets a nice crunch on it as well. But let's mix it and the flavor here. You may feel like you've added so many spices in here, but this is all the flavor that your fish is gonna get, and it's not a super thick coating. So it may seem like a lot, but trust me, you need a lot to get that flavor in. You don't want to if you're gonna do the work to fry it, you don't want a bland fish or a chicken.
How do you pick out good fish at the store?
I always kind of just look at it and see how it's texture on it. Like this is tilapia, it's very clean. We've got nice thick fillets on it. There's not a lot of bones out. And so they work really well. I always kind of also look to see if we have any like great fish on sale that I'll use for. But if the cut is good or if it's a filleted well, then I will pick, get it. With salmon, I look for ones that have the deeper orange color. So each fish kind of has different, specifications to look at for it. Catfish is a much thinner, longer fillet, and it has a whiter color to it. So each fish is very unique to it. But I have to say, Aldi's and Costco have really good fish. Both of them, I really enjoy their fish. As I went a little cray-cray with my egg whites or egg wash here. Okay, so we've got our eggs whipped up here, and let me grab my breadcrumbs. We're using Italian seasoned panko breadcrumbs, but you can use plain. You could also use regular breadcrumbs instead of panko, or crushed crackers. I've even known people who use like crushed cornflakes for it. Okay, let me do my little rigmarole here, and we are going to first do our dry dredge on everything. So this is the first one where we're gonna coat all of our fish up in this seasoned base. And so really just pat it down, get it all in the little crevices. And kind of coat it on there. Now this is not the final one. This is our first coat, and this is kind of the binding coat. So when you dip these flour-coated fillets in the egg mixture, that's essentially gonna make a cooking glue that will then allow the second dredge to really stick on there to give you that lovely, thicker crunch on there, that nice breading. Now, I know some people will just do the simple first coat, which you can do if you want to try to do have a less of a breading on there. You can definitely do that. Now, if you You can also do a variation of this gluten-free using almond flour, which works really well on there, but again, you're gonna have a thinner breading on it. But it's also pretty delicious too. Here we go. Coat it up. It's always a little messy process here. And these are pretty good size fillets here. They're gonna be sticking way out these sides of our buns, but makes them extra delicious. Okay, we've got our first one thing, our all of them fillet are dredged up. There we go. Now we're gonna add in about a cup of our panko breadcrumbs. This is gonna give you that crunch. And then we're gonna mix these in. There we go. And now we will go into our egg mixture, flip it around, and you see how that egg is just clinging to the fish now. If you didn't do that, it would just slide right off. And then we're gonna pat this stuff down and make a nice kind of coating. I always like to press it on there because I feel like it helps it stick better on it. We've got our first one fillet, or got our dredge up. Coat this guy. And make sure you get it completely coated with the egg. You don't want any parts to be missing or it's not gonna stick on there. And these fillets are pretty big. So I'm gonna wedge them in there. And just pat it down. There we go. You don't wanna put your breadcrumbs or your panko breadcrumbs in too early. Like if you do it during the first dredge, there's too much texture on it, so you'll end up they'll just fall off and you'll lose them.
You have a question. Are you using sourdough bread or a bun?
I'm gonna be using brioche buns. My kids absolutely love brioche buns. Like anytime I do a fried chicken or pork tenderloin sandwiches or fried fish sandwiches, it has to be on a brioche bun. So they just absolutely love it. I've converted them to the bougie buns. You know, growing up when I was a kid, you had like one type of bun, and it was your good old hamburger bun. There was no bougie buns. Actually, I'll take it back. There was the bougie ones if you got them with sesame seeds. Those were the bougie buns back then. And now you can get so many different types of buns. But I prefer them on the brioche. Sourdough is just it's a chewier, thicker, I think denser bread, and so it doesn't lend itself as well to being a bun because you need it to be really soft and fluffy. So yeast I actually find works much better for buns. I know you can make some sourdough buns, but I just find it's just not quite the right texture. There we go. Let's get these last two. It looks like I have the perfect amount of egg. It always makes me happy when I come out with the perfect amount. Here we go. And we'll get this guy coated up. And then I'll have to clean up my mess because I made quite a mess today. Get it up. But you know what? I like picked these out today at the store, and I just kind of had a craving for fish sandwiches. And you know, it's so cold here and in the South. We're pretty big babies. So my daughter's soccer practice got canceled. So I was like, oh, I've got a free night tonight. I'm like winning at life. Here we go. And it's so funny because my daughter came home from school and she goes, is soccer practice canceled because it's too cold? And I'm like, it is. It's only like 35 degrees, but yes, it is canceled. Now, if it was for the older girls, they wouldn't have canceled it.
Can you go over the breading?
Yes. So for our dredge here, we started about 1.5 cups, a little over 1.5 cups of flour. We added in about 2 tablespoons of onion powder, a tablespoon of paprika, about a tablespoon of Mrs. Dash's table blend, about 1.5 tablespoons of Old Bay seasoning, a teaspoon of oregano, pour it. Mixed it all up, and then we dredged it, and then with our second dredge is when we add in our panko breadcrumbs. Okay. Now let's get this guy. Let's get our oil heating up so we can fry these guys off. So you're gonna use about a cup. That is the wrong burner up there. About a cup to a little more than a cup of olive oil. It really just depends, or whatever oil you want, how big your pan is. You just need to have a nice kind of thin layer on it. We will flip our fish on both sides, so you don't need it completely submerged, which allows you to use a little bit less oil than if you were to completely submerge it. Let me get this guy cleaned up a little bit here, because I'm very messy. Not too bad though. And then I think we're gonna roll out our cookies while we wait and get our chocolate chip cookies baking up. Then we'll make our coleslaw and our tartar sauce for our dinner. We'll just do a quick wipe up real quick. Just a partial clean. Okay, let's get our cookies going. So earlier today during our lunchtime stream, I whipped up my chocolate chip cookies. Now, the only thing with chocolate chip cookies that you have to do is you have to chill the dough. And I find chilling the dough for a minimum of 2 hours is going to give you the best chocolate chip cookies. So I've had mine in there a little bit longer. You can keep it in the fridge for like 2 to 3 days, and it works well as well. So I've got a nice chilled dough. We're gonna roll these balls out, and you're gonna bake them at 375 for 9 minutes. And they're going to be the best chocolate chip cookies that are nice and chewy. They don't dry out. They're just wonderful. But you need to start with cold dough. So, and that's the thing. That's the big thing that makes these cookies so good. And I feel like that's the difference between recipes that you don't chill it to ones that you do. It's just the best chocolate chip cookies. And I always used to, when my sister got married, her mom used to she always made the best cookies. And I never understood it. Like, she always had like the best, fabulous cookies all the time. And that was when she said, oh, the thing that sets it apart is chilling your dough. And honestly, once I started chilling my dough, it really did make a much better cookie. So we just scoop it out. It is a firmer dough because that butter is cold. But again, that prevents your cookie from spreading out too much and getting thin and crispy. These will allow them to sink down and just make the most delicious cookie. I had to fight off my older children from eating the dough when they came home from school. They saw it and they kept going in there, and I'm like, there has to be enough dough to make a batch of cookies. Also, I think another thing about these cookies that just elevate them is I use a whole tablespoon of vanilla extract in it. And that gives the base of the cookie just so much flavor and deliciousness. Here we go. But it's really easy. It's just a cup of butter, and you want room temperature butter. And then you do 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar, 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar. You cream those together, add in 2 eggs, a tablespoon of vanilla, a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of baking soda, cream all of that together, 2 1/4 cups of flour, all-purpose flour, mix those together, and then a whole bag of chocolate chip cookies. And the cameraman is stealing the dough that I told him he could not eat. See what I have to live with, guys? It's the worst when I do my little cookie-a-thon and I'm like baking cookies and they disappear faster than I can place them out, at least the first couple batches. And then by the end of the day, everybody is like they're like, I can't eat another cookie. It's like with the Swedish gingerbread cookies when I make, they're called pepparkaka. And when I make them, I eat so much dough because I only make them once a year. And oh, they're so good, but they do. It's like, can't eat anymore. I've eaten so much dough, I don't even know if I want to eat a cookie. But the thing about the Swedish pepperkaka, which I'm going to be making soon, is so growing up, we would always make them like 2 days after Thanksgiving, and they actually get better with age and they last for a long time because they're a really thin, crisp cookie, and the spices mellow out with age, and so they're just really lovely. But we would make hundreds of them as kids. We'd fill up cookie tins, and I mean, it was all day that you would make. Okay, we've got these. We're gonna check our oil. I'm gonna see if it's nice and hot, and if it is, we can drop our fish in our first batch. Looks like it is. Beautiful. Okay, I have it heating up to high, but we're going to turn it down to a 5 because you don't want it too hot when you're frying, or you're going to burn your fish before you've got a nice golden, like it's cooked all the way through. Put our first one in. I'm going to do 3 fillets at a time. You don't want to crowd your fish in your pan. There we go. Looks like I got 3 to fit in here nicely. There we go. Okay, got it cooking over 5, so heat your oil up on high and then bring it down to a 5 to fry. We're gonna pop these in the oven, and then we'll move our French fries down a level that we had cooking in there, because our cookies, you want to have the direct heat on them. Sneak a peek at our beautiful French fries that are crisping up, looking fabulous. We're gonna pop these cookies in, and then we are going to bake them for 9 minutes. And when you take them out, you might think, oh, they could take a little bit longer. Nope, you don't bake them any longer. You keep them there and take them out, and they sit on the baking tray for a few minutes, and then they're perfect. I'm gonna put my dough back in the fridge to keep it chilling because, again, you don't want it to warm up. That cold dough is what makes it the best. Okay, while those are baking, let's whip up our coleslaw and our tartar sauce, because you cannot have, I feel like, fried fish without coleslaw. So I've got a lovely big chunk of purple cabbage, although we don't need all of it. I always say 1 purple cabbage will last me through like 3 or 4 meals, because I can use it, like I used it in the soup. I made a beef and cabbage soup for lunch today, and I will probably use it in an Asian dish this week as well. And then we have it in slaw. So don't feel like you need to use your cabbage all up in one recipe. It can go in lots of different ones. So we're gonna shred kind of up our purple cabbage here. You can use green cabbage as well. And then we'll make a lovely like mayo-based sauce on here. Now, I don't like my coleslaw super sweet. I do add the sugar in it, but I add a lot less than a lot of people do. I prefer it more of a sweet with a hint of saltiness to it, but not super sweet. So just cut it nice and thin, but as you can see, it really does spread out, so you don't need a whole lot of cabbage to get you a good serving of coleslaw. We're gonna put this in our bowl. And then just, you wanna kind of make sure you break it apart, those little bits that are, those leaves that are kind of stuck together. And then I'm just gonna rotate my pan. There we go. And then we're gonna add in some carrots. We're gonna do carrot ribbons. So I'm gonna first peel off the outside of my carrot, and then I'm gonna use my peeler to make carrot ribbons. I find that they are more tender than like using like shredded carrots. So put this to the side, and I'm gonna ribbon it, and then I'll chop them up. But they're just very thin, And I think they're more juicy. Like if you buy the shredded carrots already, they're always dried out. And you can grate your carrots if you want to, but I find that these just are a lot nicer. And it's not that hard. You just kind of peel it all over here. But they give just this beautiful thin carrot that I think really holds on to the dressing well. Okay. Let's see. We'll get this one peeled off as well. This is a tiny carrot, so might as well add it. There we go. And I just give it a couple quick chops here so I don't have any super long pieces. And then we're gonna throw these in our coleslaw base here. And then the last thing we're gonna add in is a little bit of green onion. You could also use red onion if you want. But let me grab my spatula here. I think our fish is ready for their first flip. But I'm gonna check. We do have paprika in our batter, which is gonna give us a kind of a darker fry color on it. But looks like these are beautiful. Perfect. Gorgeous. But that paprika gives it a nice kind of amber, a reddish hue to it. So it gives you, I think, a really pretty fry color on it. Let's do 2 green onions. Now you can add red onions in here as well. Those are both, they work well. I felt like the green onions are gonna give a little pop of color that will just add a little something extra. If you don't like onions, you can also just completely omit them. But I like, again, I don't like my coleslaw super sweet, so I like some of those more savory elements in it. There we go. Okay, let's go make our sauce. Let me grab a little bowl for this. Let's grab a bigger bowl. And a spoon. For this, you're gonna use mayo. I'm gonna do, since I only have a super huge thing, I'm only gonna do about a half a cup of mayo with this, because we don't need a whole lot. So about a half a cup of mayo, and then you're gonna add in about 2 capfuls of apple cider vinegar, and it's about 1.5 teaspoons. So 1, 2, and then sugar. You're gonna add in about, I like to do the same parts vinegar as we do sugar, so about 1.5 teaspoons of sugar. Add a little bit more, but not a huge amount of sugar, because again, I don't like my dressing super sweet, but you need to have some to kind of counteract the vinegar part of it. We'll mix it up, and then I'm going to give it a quick taste. Yep, a little dab more of sugar. So just a smidge, and a little bit more vinegar. There we go. I guess my guesstimation of how much mayo I was is just a smidge off. But there we go. Perfect. Okay. And then we're going to dress up our cabbage, carrot ribbons, and green onions. If you want a little bit of a peppery touch in here, you could put some pepper in, but I kind of just like it simple.
It doesn't matter what type of mayo.
I prefer Hellmann's mayo, but that's my preference. I don't like Miracle Whip because I think Miracle Whip is sweet, although that might work with this. But I feel like mayo, what you like, is a very personal preference. Some people swear by Duke's or Kraft or whatnot. I think it's whatever mayo you grew up with, that's the mayo you can choose. There we go. So we've got our coleslaw. And we're gonna let that sit there. I always find coleslaw let it sit for like 10-15 minutes. It's also better even the next day. Okay, these are just about done, so I'm gonna grab my baking sheet and I'm gonna put some paper towels on it, because when I take off my fried fish, I like to put them on paper towels to soak up the extra grease. It helps keep them nice and crispy. So we'll put these right here. And then, move them on. Make sure when you do it, you want to put, look how beautiful golden, put that wet greasy side down so that it can absorb up that and leave it nice and crispy.
And about how much oil do you use?
So I have probably a little over a cup in here. It's going to depend on how big your pan is. You want enough to cover the whole bottom of your fish, because we're going to fry it on both sides, to bring it up, but you don't need to have them completely submerged. Okay. And when you heat your oil up, you're going to heat it on high until when you put a drop of water in, it sizzles. And then you're going to turn it down to a medium, and you're going to cook over a medium heat. So put this last one in, and then we're going to go grab our cookies out of the oven because they are calling us. And then we will whip up our tartar sauce, and we'll check on our home fries here, see how much longer they need. Grab this. Okay, look at our beautiful cookies. Gorgeous. And let me pop these up here. And we have them again, $3.75 for 9 minutes. You're gonna let them sit for just a second, cool up. Don't play with them or move them around right now, because if you do, they're gonna fall apart. They need to finish kind of cooking on your tray. They've got, they're gonna be chewy and delicious on the inside, but they need to sit up first because they're kind of a tender softness right now. So in about 5 minutes, we'll be able to take them off, and you can see like the light golden kind of color underneath. Okay, let's get our tartar sauce going, and then our home fry should be done right about then. Let me grab a little bowl for our tartar sauce. Now, tartar sauce uses pretty much very similar ingredients as homemade, like coleslaw, except no salt or no sugar in it. Grab a spoon. So we're going to start with our mayo base here, and it's just a slightly different. Oops, made a mess already. So let me grab that in there. We'll add that in there. So we're going to do probably a little like 2/3 cup of mayo here. And then our ingredients that we're going to add are, you want about 2 diced up pickles. Let me grab a fork to fish those guys out. I like to use a nice kind of dill pickle, not a sweet pickle, because again, I like things salty. But we're going to dice them up. These are kind of small, so I'm going to do 3 because they're like little babies. And then we're going to dice up some red onion. And then we're going to add in lemon juice and dill and a little bit of pepper and a smidge of garlic salt. You don't need a lot because mayo is already salty to begin with. And that is what all you need to make homemade tartar sauce. It's really simple, but it is so much better than anything you can buy at the store. So, mince up your pickles. You know, if you like it super chunky, you can leave them bigger. If you prefer it more fine, less chunk, then mince them more. I'm a fan of the bigger chunk on there. We just need a smidge of red onion. Again, you don't need a whole lot of red onion. It's kind of like the cabbage, a little goes a long way. I'm going to take off this whole kind of top layer so we have just the nice onion left underneath.
You have a question. So it's mayo, pickles, and what else?
Red onion, dill, lemon juice, and then a little bit of garlic salt and black pepper. And that's it. Super simple. And you can use fresh or dried dill. With fresh, you can use a bit more. With dried, you're going to use about a half a teaspoon. You don't need a whole lot. You don't need all of that. Now my red onion, I'm going to mince it up. You have to use a red onion. You can't use like a yellow onion or whatnot, or a green onion. You need the sweetness of a red onion as well as the not as astringent touch to it. So that one you really can't sub out. There we go. So I've got it kind of minced up. I'll add these in here. And then let me check my fish real quick. See if we're ready to flip these guys. Beautiful. Perfect. And again, that paprika gives you this lovely kind of reddish color to our frying base, which makes it so delicious. Okay, let's grab a little bit of dill. We need about a half a teaspoon. If you're using fresh, you can go up to a teaspoon, teaspoon and a half. And we need about the juice from half of a lemon. A little bit of garlic salt. And then, let me grab my pepper and left it over here. Take a quick peek at my fries, see if they're still doing good. Perfect. And then just a little bit of black pepper. You don't need a whole lot. And this is the best tartar sauce. It's got all the flavors of restaurant style tartar sauce, and it is fabulous. Only crazy people like my husband don't like tartar sauce. He thinks it's the worst. Okay. Let's get our fish. Let's check these out. Pretty good. They're almost ready to flip over here. Okay, and we are just about ready to finish up here. So let's go grab our home fries out of the oven, and we will be ready to serve up.
Hey, a question. What's causing the yellow foam when you fry the fish?
Oh, that is like flour and like liquid kind of escaping up. You get more of it the more that it cooks and the extra breading comes off. It's kind of similar to when you fry up bacon, you get a little foam after it. It's just the mixture of like the juices of the fish and some of the flour kind of coming up. Okay. We've got our fabulous home fries here, seasoned up, nice and beautiful and crispy. And grab my spatula here on there. Now, I always like to cook them on a metal sheet because I find that they get even crispier on there than if you were to do them on a parchment paper. So we're just gonna put them all up. You always want to kind of slide them off once you first take them out of the oven, because if you let them cool a bit too much, then they stick. So I always just kind of rub my spatula underneath them. Here we go. And we are about ready to serve up here. Let me just check this fish, and we can get ready to take it off. They need a little bit, but we'll let those cook for just a
And
second.
can you go over the seasonings for the fries?
Yes, so the fries, we coated them with about 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil. Then we added some paprika, some Old Bay seasoning, onion powder, and Mrs. Dash's table blend, and about 1.5 tablespoons of flour. Coated them all up in this lovely kind of paste, and then cooked them up in the oven.
And where do you get the dimpled sheet pan?
So these are the Nordic ware. I have them in my Amazon Prime shop. This is the 1.5 sheets. It's called the big sheet, but I absolutely love them for it. All of my like baking ware, I love Nordic ware. They have really good stuff. And I'm impartial because it's Nordic and I've got Scandinavian, which really doesn't mean anything, but here my cookies were firm, but look, you got them. They're just soft and gooey and delicious on here. You always want to let them sit, but just look how tender and soft they are. Oh, they're gonna be so good. I'm gonna have to seal this one. Okay, let's serve up dinner. As I stuff my face with cookies because I can't even wait for dessert. No, too good. I love a good, chocolate chip cookie right out of the oven while it's still warm and gooey. So good. Okay, our fish is done. So again, we're gonna pop this on here. Remember to put the grease side down so that it really crisps up. Let me slide this guy over. And then we're gonna build our sandwiches and be ready to serve up dinner here. There we go. But if you don't want to put it on paper towels, you can also put it on like a cookie cooling rack, and that will allow it to crisp up nicely. Okay, let's get that out of the way. And let's get these guys all served up. So we're going to serve our fish sandwiches on brioche bun because, let me turn that guy off. It just makes it so much better. Now you could easily eat these without a bun, but it's more fun if you can hold your fish and eat it as a sandwich. Okay. So let's serve up. Let me grab a little spatula here and let's start with our fish. So we've got our hand breaded and seasoned with Old Bay, paprika, onion powder, Mrs. Dash's table blend. We're gonna put a nice dollop of our homemade tartar sauce on there, full of mayo, red onions, pickles, fresh lemon juice, black pepper and garlic salt, and dill. And we will have a good side of our homemade coleslaw where we made a slightly sweetened mayo dressing on it with a little bit of vinegar. And then of course, we will have our delicious home fries that we seasoned up with Old Bay, paprika, onion powder, and all that deliciousness. And for dessert, even though I already had mine, we have our delicious ooey gooey and perfection chocolate chip cookies that are amazing. Well guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page, so if you ever want to recreate any of our recipes at home, you can just go to our page, search for what we made. We've got our fried fish and coleslaw, and you can always watch and cook along with me again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets in it. I've got my pans in there, my frying pans, baking sheets, all the different things I use in the kitchen. But again, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like